Hello and welcome to The Entrepreneurs on Monocle Radio, the show all about inspiring people, innovative companies and fresh ideas in global business. Today's programme is all about putts and pets. First, we'll meet the co-founder of a mini golf brand, which began as a modest warehouse pop-up and is now a multi-million-dollar international operation.
We'd go do kind of trade conferences where people would be ever so slightly patronising towards us, and they'd say, "This is really nice that you're doing well, but are you sure this isn't a bit of a fad?" No, because mini golf has actually been around for over 100 years and is this classic pastime. And all we're doing is combining it with very classic hospitality with great food and drink.
And later we'll head to Los Angeles' first canine social club to meet the founder of a brand providing dog health solutions to help our furry friends to thrive.
We didn't see a trusted wellness brand across platform. There was an opportunity to build not just a singular product, but an entire brand that speaks to this mission-driven, trusted voice.
This is The Entrepreneurs, with me, Tom Edwards. You're listening to The Entrepreneurs. Matt Grech-Smith is the co-founder and co-CEO of Swingers. Now, don't get any ideas. It's a mini golf club he launched 10 years ago with longtime business partner Jeremy Simmons. Today, Swingers is a thriving global venture with permanent locations here in London, in New York and DC, and 2 new venues opening this year in Las Vegas and Dubai. Matt stopped by Midori House to talk about blending immersive experiences with premium hospitality and how they're teeing up, for expansion, with plans to open 12 more locations worldwide by next year. Matt began by telling me about his and Jeremy's early days in business, working as club promoters.
We started out, we were at university, I was at Manchester, he was at Leeds, and I don't know, we were just inquisitive minds who were finding the university pace a tiny bit slow and got into organising club nights for students because you'd get bars that were busy on the weekends but during the week had no trade. So they'd come and find promoters and they'd say, "Fill our venues, we'll put on a drinks promotion, well, we'll do some insane price." And I shudder to say this now, they used to do £1.50 for a single vodka mixer, £2.50 for a double, and £3.50 for a treble. Which,
the golden age of hospitality.
Yeah, my rose-tinted spectacles.
I'm surprised no one from the NHS got in touch.
I know. But that was the promotion, and we would create a brand and get the cool kids from all over the different societies and clubs and sports teams and fill these venues. And we were pretty good at it, and we built this business where we were actually operating about 20 club nights a week all over the UK while still students. So it was all quite bonkers. It was a real business 101 because all you needed was a bit of capital to pay for a DJ and pay for a print run of flyers. And then if you filled your venue and you hit the zeitgeist in the right way, you could make really decent money out of it. So it's amazing the number of people I come across in day-to-day life where they say, "Oh yeah, I started out doing club promotion." And it's like, that's the basic training. That business, like I say, it grew and it eventually got bought by a big ad agency called VCP, who are one of the biggest ad agencies in the UK, and they do Compare the Meerkat and all that sort of thing. And they just love what we were doing because we could obviously do these real-world experiential activations and we could talk to young people. So we spent a few years in that agency working with them. We totally made the best of it, and we look back on it and think it professionalised us and taught a huge amount, and we were sitting at the senior table in this big agency, so you can't look that kind of opportunity in the mouth. Our experience there really powered us after we completed our earn-out, and we were thinking we want to get back to being entrepreneurial and doing our own thing. And so that experience we had with the experiential industry, nightlife, marketing, all came together when we thought, let's launch a mini golf club with food and drink. But
well, it would be remiss of me then. So what was that moment? Because you can see, as you said, you draw these strands together, which actually are not that disparate. You can see the overlay. You'd kind of been refining your skill sets over quite a significant amount of time, even at a relatively young age at that point. What was the crazy golf? You just loved it? Or how was there a singular moment where somebody said, "I've got it"? Or how
we were sitting in a Starbucks and someone we'd worked with said, "Oh, you should do crazy golf." And we kind of looked around at the market, and at the moment now you can go and do any activity in a venue, but back then you really couldn't. You could go and play table tennis somewhere, and you could do a bit of upscale bowling, but that was really it. And so we said, what if you took the age-old game of mini golf, but built this kind of theatrical, immersive world around it? But also, when you went, everyone's used to the food and drink not being very good when you go to these types of venues. Imagine if it was really good, and we got restaurant brands to operate like concessions, and we did incredible cocktails on the course. And then
For potentially more than £1.50 this time.
More than £1.50 for sure. But we'll call it Swingers. And once we thought the name Swingers, we were like, yes, this is absolutely amazing. And we'd been in this ad agency where you were constantly pitching ideas to clients and trying to persuade them to do things, which was generally an uphill struggle. But this idea, we would go to people and we'd say, would you come and play mini golf where we bring you cocktails while you play, and then afterwards you get to eat London's best burger? And it was such a unanimous response. We were like, we've got to try this. And so we did a pop-up to test it.
And the rest is kind of history.
Kind of, yeah.
What's the most useful learning process? It's just so interesting, like charting that career. It's very, particularly in the early sort of promotion days, the feedback is very instant and you can be very reactive. You can literally kind of read a room, get the feel of things that are working or not working. As businesses scale, I don't know, is it harder to do that? Is it important to continue to do that? Is that still the best strategy that you guys have for if you're working on the nuance of something, whether something's right, how to make amendments by kind of just being on the floor, if you like, and doing that? Do you have to look at other ways of exploring that? What's that like from a process point of view?
I mean, I think the process we use a phrase a lot that we call creative commerciality, where we have these very exciting venues where you can have all sorts of great ideas and give people these cool experiences, but you just always have to maintain the commercial aspect of it. What's it going to cost? Who's going to want to do it? What's the take-up going to be? What's the profit margin going to be? And yeah, a lot of the time that does mean working with our teams because they see the product on the floor day to day. And so you can have ideas that you think are great, but no one else does. So yeah, we try to have a bit of a crack team as well to sense check this.
Is your team happy to tell you when you've had a great idea that they know won't work, or do they have to be fairly diplomatic about it? What's your leadership style?
They love to tell me that my ideas are terrible. Yeah, I think
you need to watch out for that. I think.
Yeah, they do it in a pleasantly disrespectful way. Okay, but no, we have a pretty honest dialogue. I mean, no one wants to work on an idea that they know isn't going to work and is going to be a waste of time. So, yeah, we have a fairly relaxed leadership style.
Fairly relaxed. A certain tension you said on
you never know.
One of the things that lots of entrepreneurial folk that I talk to often attribute lots of their successes down to, I think very over-modestly, is luck. Do we sometimes neglect to talk about the role that happenstance, luck, a bit of serendipity can play? Has it been important in your experience?
Yeah. When you start out, if you have the right contacts book and the opportunity that you start with comes along at the right time, is really unusual. When you look back, you think, wow, it's amazing that things stacked up in a certain way. And even now, when we go out and we're looking for a new site in a new city, it just depends what's on the market at that point in time and if there's something suitable. So luck plays a role at every part of the journey.
I love that thing about sites. Are you in that kind of oligarch category where you just sort of fly over a city and say, what about there? What about there? Or not quite yet. You're getting there,
we just look from the plane and point at things. No, we go beg agents and they say, who the hell are you? And we say, we want to do some mini golf in your city. And they look at us very sceptically and find out we're called Swingers and then are even more sceptical.
Give me a second. But that must be changing, actually. And I know, obviously, you've got new sites opening, Dubai, Vegas, etc. Presumably that conversation now is changing and it's not like, what? Mini golf? It must be like, you're those guys. That must be now more the narrative?
I think there's two components. There's the activity, which when we started out and we were running these venues which have mini golf plus food and drink, we were in London to start with, and we'd go do trade conferences where people would be ever so slightly patronising towards us, and they'd say, this is really nice that you're doing well, but are you sure this isn't a bit of a fad? And we'd say, well, no, because mini golf has actually been around for over 100 years and is this classic pastime, and all we're doing is combining it with very classic hospitality with great food and drink. And so at its nucleus, it's still a very, I keep using the word classic, but that's the best word for it, a very classic activity. So we're not really reinventing the wheel, we're just putting two things that haven't previously been together. Over time, people now have seen the emergence of this sector, which we call competitive socialising, and that's now taken very seriously. In the UK, there's something like 80 venues. Just in London, there's 80 venues that do it, and we're seeing that growth spread to the US. But also now the Swingers name is gaining some traction, and when we started out, we had 2 in London and we were well known here, and we had to go to the US and almost start again trying to convince people of what it was that we do. And I think getting open in New York was a really interesting turning point for us, where now people in the US, particularly people within the industry, can come and look at it, they get it, they understand it. And then I think when we open in Las Vegas at the end of this year, I think it will give us a kind of an international profile, and there'll be people from Asia and South America and that sort of thing that say to us, we want you to come and do it here. So it's interesting how it goes in increments, and you, in quite a short space of time, but you remember where you were when nobody understood a word that you were saying.
Well, it's funny in that idea of, what happens in Vegas, of course, but then the experiences people really enjoy in Vegas, they don't stay. They talk about them. They go overseas, and that's interesting. A narrative we've often talked about in this programme is the cracking America thing. Talk to me about that process, because in some ways you did it relatively quickly. I mean, if you think about some brands and the way they expand and the pace of change is different, was it a clash of culture? Did you have to change lots of stuff fundamentally about your approach, the two of you, or did you just stick to your guns really and it kind of worked out?
When you look at the Swingers product in London and in New York, for example, it looks pretty similar. I mean, they're different venues, they're designed a little bit differently for the space, but you will go and have a fundamentally Swingers experience. So there were small tweaks in the way people eat and drink and pay and do these things, but nothing very macro. It's all really the difficulty comes behind the scenes, as it were, because going and setting up a business in the US, I speak to people all the time, especially emerging brands that are in our space, and they say, we're just going to do a couple in London, then we're going to go to the US. And you think, oh my word, it is not that simple. But we were in London, we had 2 venues that were going really, really well. They were kind of exceeding all of our expectations. We've got these 2 between 15 and 20,000 square foot venues. So they're big machines, and each one was doing between 5,000 and 7,000 people coming through it a week. So when we looked around the UK for other places to go, we knew we'd sort of reach a saturation point in London, and we looked at other regional cities, and Swingers has a big corporate component, so we have to look at corporate density in all these cities. And so corporate density was important, dating culture, whether people could go after work drinking, weren't driving to work, and so not unable to drink after work. And so we have this tick list of things that made a Swingers city. And as we looked around the UK, we just couldn't quite get the confidence. There's some amazing cities, and there's lots of people doing great stuff in them, but just our sites are really big and require this huge density. And so in Manchester and Edinburgh, we just couldn't quite get comfortable with the fact that they were going to be big enough. And we also had this universal concept of mini golf with street food and cocktails. And we could see how people were taking to it. We could see it in our own revenues, but we knew that other people were going to start copying it. And so when you look at the US, there's all these cities which are markets that we could go to. And so there was, to a degree, it was just a bit of a foot race. We wanted to get to the US and do it before someone else did. So we found a site quite quickly in New York, actually. They were just breaking ground on a new 60-storey building, which was going to be a Virgin hotel, and it had this massive basement space. And we just saw the empty lot, and we're like, that is the one for us. It's the right place in the right street corner. It's on Broadway in the Nomad district of New York, so just right in the middle of everything. And we were like, that's the place for us, and that's where it all grew from. And we've now got 2 sites in the US, and we touched on it going to Vegas later this year, but when you look back at that journey, it's by no means straightforward. And kind of when you start out, you don't know what you don't know, and that's probably a good thing. Well, again, that's another thing that virtually everyone I talk to on this programme says, God, if I'd known then what I know now, I never would have got started. So when did the first US site actually open for business? So we opened in Washington, DC in June 2021, and that was right on the back of the pandemic. The restrictions eased up in the US quicker than they did in the UK. And in DC, our launch party was basically the week after the restrictions eased up. So no one had been to a party or an event in months and months and months. And so we got the whole Washington establishment turning out for the launch of this crazy golf club. We had a friend of ours who was a restaurateur in DC, and he came in and he was like, oh my God, this guest list is insane. How did you get these people? And there were people from the White House, all of the political correspondents, various press and that sort of thing, who we didn't have a clue who any of them were. But I think they were just very excited to be out and about after a long period of COVID.
Well, let's talk a little bit then about the primacy of great hospitality, that experiential culture, because obviously it could have sounded a death knell for what you do, 2020, so uncertain, and it went everywhere. And yet the belief in the need for the experiential side of things, it became even more important. That story about that DC party speaks to it. So once you've been able to cling on by your fingertips through that period, did it mean that the opportunity was almost bigger, or people's conviction or their love for what you guys do?
Yeah, definitely.
It was deeper actually afterwards. Is it the kind of classic, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger cliche a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was such a weird journey that we went on, because when the pandemic first hit and we all went into lockdown, we genuinely sat there and thought, will people ever go out in the same way that they once did again? You know, there was definitely a few months of existential dread where we just thought, we've been building this business, it's just hitting its stride. You know, we've got these US sites lined up. We were kind of on a mission. And then suddenly we thought, will people ever congregate again? Or are we going to be entering some new normal? But what was really interesting is, like you say, people in that time sitting at home really remembered and thought about how much it means to them to be able to go out and do things. And I think for a while they had their fill of screens and Zoom calls and the joys of the tech world. And so what would happen in the UK, which is the only places we were open at the time, is you remember the turbulent, crazy rules around lockdown, but whenever there was a let-up and places were allowed to reopen for a bit, our tickets would just sell out. And people were so desperate to getting back to having these in-person experiences where they could actually do something. So it definitely reminded them of what they'd had and taught them not to take it for granted. And then I think once things really eased up and the world went back to normal, then there was a real honeymoon where people were going out, partying. I think all the Christmas party budgets had basically accumulated. Nobody had written those off. They said, yeah, we're going to keep those. And so there was a bit of a spending spree that went on where people just went out and had all the events that they'd previously missed out on. Things are normalising a bit now. I feel like we're over that post-pandemic bounce, but it was really nice to witness that kind of rush back out into the real world.
So just last question on this. Did you and Jeremy ever have a point then during that on-off hiatus? Were there times when you guys sat down and said, do we keep doing this? Can we keep doing this? Or did the conviction always remain that, you know, there'd be light at the end of the tunnel?
There was definitely, like I say, the first couple of months where we just did not know what the world was going to be like. And we just had to sit and weather the storm, really, just for our staff. I mean, day to day, there was so much to do, whether it was the furlough scheme coming out or all our venue staff are on average age sort of between 20 and 25. And there were all these young people from all over Europe and the wider world, and they were all sitting at home in their bedrooms just waiting for restrictions to ease up. So we had this quite big responsibility to look after them and kind of help walk them through the process. And we were lucky that we'd recently completed our first fundraise, which was going to fund our sites in the US. So we had money in the bank. It wasn't meant to be spent on just basic survival, but it meant that we weren't having that hand-to-mouth sheer terror. So we were able to sustain ourselves in that respect. And then, like we said before, just whenever there was this glimmer of light in between the various lockdowns and there was this thirst and enthusiasm to go out, we could see that it was still there and we still had a business. And that reassured our investors, actually, who said, we understand that the world is going to come back and this sort of thing is absolutely integral. And so from that point on, we pressed ahead.
Tell me about how this travels, because obviously you said the idea is it travels elegantly in the sense that, yeah, it sounds like fun. But I guess there are always attendant challenges, whether you're in, I don't know, in Manhattan or DC or Vegas or Dubai. Do you have to change the strategic approach? Do you have to find different people to talk to on the ground to pick around the edges at these different threads to see how things might land? Because, I don't know, socially, economically, culturally, the landscapes are very different, and yet it seems to land fairly well. What's that like?
It's been really interesting because when you start out in London, it's a market that you know inherently. So you sort of don't ask yourself some of these questions. You know the answers. So we kicked off with Swingers, the crazy golf club, and it landed, it made sense to people, and then it just worked. And then when we were opening in DC, which is the first US location, we suddenly had this thought, and we thought we don't want to take anything for granted. So we did this qualitative research where we just used this company that went and spoke to about 20 people and got anecdotal responses. And we checked everything from our music policy to the way we serve food and drink. And actually, crucially, what the responses to the name Swingers were, because we didn't want people to be weirdly put off.
Or disappointed.
Right.
In one way or
which
another.
Which is a big risk.
With what was on offer, yeah.
And it was interesting because we just saw played out probably what happened in the UK, where when people first hear it and they go, Swingers, oh, and they look a bit confused and they say, what's that? And then when you say to them, would you go to your boss and would you ask them if we could do the Christmas party at Swingers? And they're like, hell no. And then you explain to them what it is and you show them photos of it and you say, no, it's mini golf in a premium setting with great cocktails. And then they're like, oh, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, no problem. So you can see as soon as people understand what it is and then they find the name pleasantly cheeky. So, but it was good just to check that and remove that element of risk. And as we go around the US, you do see cultural variation. You can't treat the US as one homogenous place. State to state, you almost have to treat it as a group of countries. And so we were looking at locations in the southern states recently, and there was definitely an eyebrow raised at the name Swingers. And then we're going to Dubai this year. And again, the name definitely raised some eyebrows. Getting it trademarked was a challenge, but I think in Dubai we're Swingers, the crazy golf club, as opposed to just Swingers, which calmed everybody down. Obviously, in Dubai there's a big segment of people that do drink, but another segment of people that don't drink. So that's kind of our first market that we've gone to where we will have to accommodate that. Dubai is our first franchise, so we're working with a local partner there, so they're able to help us kind of navigate that. So that should go fairly smoothly. But yeah, you do have to look everywhere you go at how the product's going to land, and there are tweaks and variations that you have to make.
Very quickly, Matt, give us a picture of where we're at. 70 million this year, that's the anticipation for 2024?
Yeah, in the region of $70 million.
I mean, presumably that's on track with the plan set, with your partners and all the rest of it, but could you guys have believed that, going back not that long, what is it, kind of less than 10 years, is that right?
Well, actually, yeah, it's funny.
10 years?
10 years at the end of this year since the pop-up opened, and we'll be opening Vegas. So when I'd stood in that leaky warehouse in Shoreditch and thought in 10 years' time we'll be doing this in Las Vegas, I would have said absolutely no chance.
And helming the two of you still, because you're the co-CEOs, right?
Correct,
of a $70 million thing. I don't know, it strikes me you probably always had a degree of confidence. Maybe it was a bit of bombast at times, but
yeah, a little bit of confidence.
Did you think you could do something like that?
We thought this is a great concept and it could really travel. I don't know that we saw it opening in 40,000 square feet at the Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, but you just go with the flow.
That was Matt Grech-Smith, the co-founder and co-CEO of Swingers. You can learn more by heading to swingers.club. Coming up, we head to a members-only dog park where the requirements to get in are as strict as all the hottest clubs in LA. You're listening to The Entrepreneurs. Now, Monocle's distinguished listeners will know that here at Midori House, we love dogs. From Macy, the fox terrier who looks after Andrew Tuck, to Bella, the English Springer Spaniel who sometimes joins our Georgina Godwin in the studio, Monocle HQ has a proper open-door policy for our four-legged friends. And it's in this vein that we sent Monocle's US editor, Chris Lord, to an exclusive members-only canine social club to meet the founder of a specially formulated range of doggy treats and supplements. Sound like a hot lead? Chris sent us this report.
Many dogs live a charmed life here in Los Angeles. I'm at Dog Ppl in Santa Monica. It's a members club that's been described as a sort of Soho House for dogs. Here dogs get to run free While their owners can pitch up at a bar serving craft beer, there are tables to catch up on emails, and most importantly, they have the assurance that only well-behaved and vaccinated dogs get let in. All for a monthly fee of $120. Pet care is a boom industry right now. In 2022, Americans spent $137 billion on their pets, which is up by more than 10% on the year before. I've come here to meet an entrepreneur called William Smallham. Bill is the founder of Wag Well, a new pet lifestyle brand making treats, chews and supplements that promise to calm a dog down or soothe its stiff joints, all without the use of any chemicals. Headquartered in North Carolina, Wag Well has had substantial startup investment, and with a smart bit of branding is pitching itself at the discerning dog owner.
We didn't see a trusted wellness brand across platform that you have in baby, you have in organic food, you have in home goods. We felt with Wag Well there was an opportunity to build not just a singular product, but an entire brand that speaks to this mission-driven, trusted voice. We want to build that good platform that people will understand. So when you walk into a Petco, you see a lot of disparate brands and products. How do we build something that you know will be a trusted piece?
We've got some freeze-dried dog treats here, fully cooked beef. Tell me about this product.
It's human grade. I could eat them myself if I wanted, and have.
How do they taste?
They're actually pretty good. I mean, it's like we have beef and cheese that we're launching with, but the technology is great because it looks like astronaut ice cream, and you can crumble them and mix that into the foods for an older dog to eat, place it on top as a topper, or give it as a treat as its own. You can also add water to it to reconstitute. So it's this perfect mix. It's healthy. The dogs go nuts over it.
You say the dogs go crazy. There's already one kind of gathered around my feet here, obviously attracted by the sound of the treats. You've just opened up this beautiful box here, which has got calming chews here in a chicken flavour. You've got ahi flour, omega oil. When you walk into a pet store, there are so many brands with heritage and quality to them, but I sense that you're trying to disrupt that a little bit.
Well, a lot of the pet space is not terribly regulated. You've seen the advent of private equity, and not a lot of innovation has come as a result. And a lot of the advice you're given is anecdotal at best. So it was really important to us that we hired veterinary nutritionists and food scientists to formulate what is really like my ideal product. It's a blue sky scenario. If I'm going to make a new brand, it's really important that product is superior and differentiated. So we entered the market in supplements because it's something that's traditionally been kind of referred to as snake oil. There's a lot of value in it, and it's especially great when it's working alongside a healthy diet. They're not antibiotics, right? It's part of this, pro-health approach to one's diet. So we took best-in-class products and created this ahi flour omega oil, which is an alternative to your salmon or fish oil. Ahi flour is a plant-based omega source for omega-3, 6, and 9, and it's much cleaner, it's more effective, it doesn't have the bad breath that dogs have, it doesn't smell, and one bottle is equivalent to 600 fish in the sea. I come from a luxury beauty manufacturing background, so I've worked with a lot of manufacturers over the years and really had a focus on technology-driven ingredients and supply chain, and it's easy to sort of greenwash sustainability. It was really important to us when we're thinking of a luxury brand today. It's not just some gilded object on the table. It's where is it made? What are the ingredients? Where is the money going?
So I think the ultimate test of this is to try it out with one of these many dogs that are now running around the dog park. And we've got over here Jane, I believe, who's with Rue. Is that right? Hi, Jane.
Yes. Hi. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. So you've come down to Dog Ppl today. Just tell me a little bit about Rue.
Rue is a rescue puppy from the LA County Pound. She's 6 months old, and you can see she has a very healthy appetite.
She really does. So Rue, what do you think?
She might be distracted. Rue.
Yeah, we're creating a scene here, aren't we, Bill?
I mean, I think it wins. We're attracting multiple dogs.
There's multiple dogs have now arrived.
Her tail is wagging. I think high-end clean ingredients are extremely important. I think people are treating their dogs better than ever, and it's very important to them. So I think that's something I look for and a lot of people look for.
These products come with an elevated price point, shall we say. They're a little bit more expensive than something that you might find cheap in a pet store.
She provides me with a lot of services, so I would pay more to make sure she is healthy and treated well.
Wag Well is tapping into the humanisation of dogs, a trend among so-called pet parents who want assurances that what they're giving their furry companions is all natural with recognisable and safe ingredients. It's just as you would with a child, and importantly, they are willing to pay a bit more for it. The same can be said for the success of Dog Ppl, the members club for dogs here in Santa Monica, which is pitched as a safe space for dogs to play. I spoke to the co-founders of Dog Ppl, Alexander Esquera and Liam Underwood, about the opportunities in this sector.
The global market for the pet industry is going to be $500 billion by 2030, and people in this sector are sprouting up all over the country, which tells us that this is a solution that's been long awaited. We have a massive family of 1,600 members now, and it's incredible.
And it's growing because you guys have got your eyes on the horizon. You've got more Dog Ppl parks in the mix, haven't you? They're coming very soon.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the first time we're publicly saying this, which is always fun. But yeah, we're opening more in Los Angeles and SoCal for sure. This is like, we were born in Dogtown, but we are planting a few nice looking seeds in Austin, Miami, New York, and we're just very excited about it.
But then to run a dog park, you've got to be a dog lover. And you have rescue dogs that you look after right here. Who's this?
This is Atari here. Oh, she just bit the microphone. She is a resident rescue here. She's actually a deaf Dalmatian that was dumped at the shelter. She has a job interview at the fire station next week.
As with any good entrepreneurial venture, it helps to have a bit of a personal stake, a passion for the project. Here's Bill Smolin of Wag Well again.
I do have an aging pug, and I'm aware of, she's 11 years old now, and we've been looking into ways to prolong the health of her life, and a lot of that's through quality of food and having that best approach to taking care of her. I always wanted to build a relevant brand in this space. You have Honest Company for home goods, Annie's for organic, Frida for baby. You don't have that bit in pet. So I thought if we're going to do this, I think it's really important to think about a holistic, trusted wellness brand and what it will take to build that. This is a natural extension in my career because it all leads from the brand build, the product, even just the numbers, the understanding of P&L and how to prioritize and work with teams and build it. I think it's follow your passion, go where it's warm, always show up early and do good work.
Go where it's warm. It's pretty warm here and there's so many dogs running around. Well, William Smolin, thank you so much for talking to Monocle Radio.
Thank you for having me.
For Monocle in Los Angeles, I'm Chris Lord.
Thanks, Chris. You can learn more about the brand by heading to wagwellpet.com. Or if you're in Los Angeles and looking for Dog Ppl, it's dogppl.co. And that's it for this episode of The Entrepreneurs. We'll be back at the same time next week. The programme was produced by Laura Kramer with audio editing by Tamsin Howard. Listen again and find out more about the programme at monocle.com or follow us and catch up with the archive via your preferred podcast platform. If you want to get in touch with the team, email Laura on lrk@monocle.com. I'm Tom Edwards. Goodbye and thanks for listening to The Entrepreneurs.